The National Weather Service Eastern Regional Coastal Flood Webpage has been developed to provide authoritative coastal flood forecasts for the public and government agencies from Maine to South Carolina. This video will provide a quick tutorial on the National Weather Service Eastern Regional Coastal Flood webpage, which can be reached at the listed URL or by visiting any Coastal Forecast Office webpage and visit the page under the Forecast tab at the top. You can also navigate to the page by selecting the coastal flood tile shown on this slide at the bottom of most Coastal Local Weather Forecast Office pages. The page will first open to the Coastal Flood Threat Display map and will be centered on a specific selected view. The first step is to navigate to your specific area of interest. To do this, look at the top of the page and select the drop-down menu under the selected view. Simply select the area of interest, whether it is a local weather forecast office, state, or even a FEMA region. Once an area is selected, you will zoom into that specific office. Note, you can also just zoom in on the map to the area of interest, but individual forecast offices may have additional local information that can only be accessed by selecting their specific view. Once you have navigated to your local area of interest, you will have the option to create a permalink for the save setting for easy retrieval in the future. This can be accomplished by selecting the permalink and bookmark the associated URL. One last point about the main page is if there's a tropical cyclone in the Atlantic Basin, there will be a highlighted news headline at the top of the page that links to the National Hurricane Center. Now we begin to talk about the interface tabs at the top of this site. The primary interface tab is the Coastal Hazard Map. The National Weather Service Coastal Flood Program forecasts coastal water levels out to 60 hours. This site allows you to quickly navigate to the different tide cycles via the High Tide Cycle bar. The High Tide Cycle bar will highlight high tide cycles with forecast and flooding via highlighted colors. The bar will be orange for minor flooding, red for moderate coastal flooding, and purple for major coastal flooding. As you toggle through the high tide cycle times, the map interfaced coastal flood points will also change color if flooding is forecasted. The individual coastal site icons will also change color to either orange, red, or purple if flooding is forecasted. If you hover over forecast point, the hydrograph or coastal flood table will pop up. To keep them displayed, click on the forecast point. If the site has a hydrograph, you can select the hydrograph and it will take you to the specific AHAP's flood forecast page. To close the hydrograph and/or the coastal flood table, just hit the X button in the top right corner. A new option added is the ability to display the peak water level forecast. You can do this by clicking on the Display Peak Forecast icon on the top to jump to the highlighted tide cycle. This option only works when there is coastal flooding forecasted. The Coastal Hazard Map has additional overlays that can be toggled on and off. These overlays consist of coastal hazards, which can include coastal flood headlines, marine headlines, and tropical headlines. You can toggle on and off all the coastal hazard headlines or individual headlines when there are multiple ones present. You can also toggle on observed wave heights from federal, state, and academia buoy resources. Forecast overlays include forecasted wave heights, wind speeds, and wind gusts over the next 60 hours. To move forward and back in time, you can move to the high tide cycle of concern via the bar at the top of the page. And then use the time bar on the lower right side to move forward and back in 3-hour time increments. Note, it does take some time for these forecast overlays to load. The coastal flood page has an experimental potential coastal flood extent map at the bottom of the page. The potential coastal flood extent map overlays illustrate the extent of potential stillwater flooding at a certain flood category threshold. They do not represent the depth. The layers also do not account for local effects of wind, rainfall, wave action, erosion, subsidence, or future construction. The flood category water levels are established via the coastal tide gauge flood stages. The flood category water levels in regions between two flood forecast points are interpolated. To use the flood layers, look at the forecasted coastal flood stage at the area of interest. In this example, moderate coastal flooding is forecasted in the Boston Harbor region on the 18th afternoon high tide. To get an idea of possible areal extent of impacts, you can select the moderate extent flood layer. Once this is done, the map overlay will load. You can zoom into your specific area of interest to see potential areas of inundation based off the total water level forecast. You can change the map background and opacity to help you view the map layers. You will also notice there are yellow areas. These represent low-lying areas which are not directly connected to the shoreline, but could also flood as they are near sea level. Think of storm drainage backups for an example. You can load different flood potential extent layers or multiple ones at the same time to get a range of possible inundated areas depending on the tide cycle and forecast. This can be done by selecting different map layers at the bottom. Another application of this page is the ability to view marine and coastal forecasts on a high precision 2.5 kilometer resolution. To do this, simply click anywhere on the map out to approximately 60 nautical miles from the coastline. And a new forecast display window will open. This will display the point weather forecast for this exact location. If there are any valid headlines, they will be listed with the ability to select and link directly to the text product. To go back to the coastal hazard map, simply select the coastal hazard map tab again to toggle back to the main interface. You can select a new location for a different forecast point, and the forecast display tab will update with the latest forecast. Repeat this process for as many locations as you need. Note, to have the option to view coastal flooding headline text products, you will need to select a land-based forecast point on the map. There are 3 types of sites listed on the coastal flood page. There are coastal sites that have both a water level forecast and observation tide gauge, which are labeled by the square. When you select these forecasts, in observation site, you will see they have both observations data and tidal forecast data via the forecast table and a purple forecast trace on the hydrograph. The coastal site labeled at diamonds are tidal observation sites only, and they will be colored as gray as they are not forecast points. When you select these sites, you will see they have tidal observation data only and no forecast table associated with them. The coastal sites labeled as circles are sites that do not have tidal observation data and are forecast points only. When you select these sites, you will only see a forecast table for the next 60 hours with no hydrograph. One last thing you will notice, in some forecast points will be highlighted the color gray from time to time. Gray means that there is no water level forecast for this tide cycle. The forecast information in flood categories is red from the National Weather Service forecast table. So, in this example, when you are looking at the forecast table, you will notice there is no high tide forecast information in the table on the morning of the 28th. This happens time to time on the high tide cycle on certain days, as there isn't actually a high tide. This is the reason why certain high tide cycle flood stages are displayed as missing. The Water Level Quick Look tab provides you a quick look at the water level observations and forecasts where they are available for all tide gauges in your selected view. To change the view, go up to the selected view and just choose your area of interest. These snapshot hydrographs are pulled from the National Weather Service AHAP's website. And if you click on individual location snapshot, it will take you to the parent AHAPS page where you can get detailed information on the site location, observations, forecasts, flood thresholds, and impact information. This is intended to be a useful situational awareness tool for you to quickly monitor tidal observation and forecasts at a glance in your specific area of concern. The Inundation and Impact Resources tab is your one-stop shop solution for governmental inundation and impact visualization tools. In addition, coastal flood model guidance, tidal information, and more is included in this section. Under the Federal Inundation and Impact Resources section, you will find powerful visualization tools such as the Sea Level Rise Viewer, hazard layers to include societal, environmental, and infrastructure coastal hazards, and FEMA National Flood Hazard layers. These resources will help ready your communities for the coastal flood hazards and understand the impacts of the National Weather Service total water level forecasts to your area of concern. Under the Federal Coastal Flood Model Guidance section, you'll be able to access the output from the various federal storm surge models, coastal change models, and nearshore wave models. Other coastal flood model guidance, such as academic or collaborative, are not included here, but they can be found on the Local Resources tab. Under the Other Coastal Resources section, you'll be able to access information from NOAA and the USGS on astronomical tides, tidal currents, sea level trends, coastal change, and more. Unlike the other tabs on this website, the Local Resources tab is unique to each NWS forecast office. It provides important supplemental local coastal hazard and impact information to help make your communities ready, responsive, and resilient. Please let your local warning coordination meteorologist or Coastal Services team leader know if there's information you would like to see on this page to help you in your mission. We hope that you will find this new website beneficial to your readiness and response operations. We would like to continue to fine-tune it to meet your needs, so please check the fact link for the primary contact in your local area, and please share how we can enhance this website to help. Thank you.